to Kids for Chemistry. Today, we have a very special guest. Her name is Dr. Diann Jordan. She's the author of a book called Sisters in Science. In this book, she talks about the first Black woman to become scientist. Here is a copy of her book.
Dr. Jordan is currently a professor of biological sciences at Alabama State University and an educational consultant. She was the first woman faculty ever hired in the Soil and Atmospheric Sciences Department, and likely the first African American woman tenured in the Research Science Department at the University of Missouri-Columbia.
Dr. Jordan has received numerous awards, including the Woman of Color in Science and Technology Certificate of Merit in 1997, the Faculty Enhancement Award for Diversity and Human Rights. She has a lot of awards. From the University of Missouri. And in 2010, she received the Woman of Excellence Award for scientific education and research from Tuskegee University.
For the last 15 years, her research has focused on STEM education and creating unique teaching strategies and solutions for diverse and underserved populations. So I know she's going to love the Kids for Chemistry program. Welcome, Dr. Jordan, to the Kids for Chemistry program.
Thank you all for having me on the show. It is so nice to meet you all. Now, I am wearing my African garb for Women's History Month, and we just celebrated Black History Month. And I just want you all to know that a scientist can look many different ways. Some of us wear lab coats. Here's a lab coat that I used to wear when I did my lab research. Also, some of us are in the classroom teaching. That's what I do right now. And there was a time in my career that I worked in Missouri, as you heard, on a field called Sanborn Field. That field was over 100 years old. Here I am with my students, and they are digging for earthworms. You know, earthworms are so important to the soil and to the environment. And chemistry is a part of that too.
Dr. Jordan, who were some of the first Black women scientists?
Well, Joy, some of the first Black women scientists, they probably, I would say, we had maybe one or two, maybe not practicing scientists, but after the Civil War, when things opened up a bit, we know for sure that in 1933, we had the first Black woman PhD in bacteriology, which is another way of saying microbiology. So we know that around the 1940s and 50s, Black women were actually able to do science in a research setting. Now, I'm sure many of them did science before in some of our historically Black colleges and universities. But what you have to realize is that even in schools where we had access, like historically Black colleges, because of our gender, because of our femaleness, we were not always allowed to do our science. So we've been struggling for a while, but some of the first, I would say, began with Ruth Ella Moore in 1933 and continued throughout. As a matter of fact, well, I don't want to jump too quickly, but we even had some of the first engineers in the 70s. But we'll talk more about that later.
Dr. Jordan, Why was it so difficult for Black women to become scientists?
Well, Nicholas, that is an easy and a hard question at the same time. But to understand the answer, we have to understand a little history. And that's why I always like to put a little history into science. Now, as you well know, this is Women's History Month, and we just celebrated Black History Month. So you know that we, diverse groups, had struggles when they came to America. And Black women, they didn't first formally become scientists until the 1900s. However, to say that we were not scientists or not practicing science, I cannot say that because Black women were midwives. They knew how to make various types of um, soaps and various different types of things that were needed during the time when we were struggling through slavery. So I just imagine that we have been using a little bit of science, biology, and chemistry for many years. But as far as uh, it being difficult, many reasons, including race, gender, and quite frankly, what? Access. We didn't have access. We started first getting real access to science around World War II. Now, there was actually a woman that I cite in my book, Ruth Moore, who actually received a PhD in all things bacteriology from the Ohio State University in 1933. That is probably the earliest time that we can see a Black woman actually receiving a formal research degree. Now, the first doctor was back in, I believe, around 1864, Rebecca Lee. So we have been doing science. Is difficult for some of the obvious historical reasons. It's also difficult because many times we are not accepted as scientists, but things are changing and hopefully are getting better.
What inspired you to become a scientist?
What inspired me to become a scientist? Well, it started at home. My mother saw that I was a very curious little girl. So, what she did was to try and encourage me. She looked in the Sears Roebuck catalog and she saw a pair of binoculars. They were actually a magnifying glass. But what was interesting about it was that you put it around your head. And she bought that for me when I was a child. Along the way, many teachers and my family, they really supported me to become a scientist.
Dr. Jordan, I want to become a chemical engineer one day. Who was the first Black woman in chemical engineering?
Well, Joy, that is a very good question and one that you should know. Well, it just so happens that I happen to know the first Black woman to receive a PhD in chemical engineering, which was Dr. Jennie Patrick. Dr. Jennie Patrick. And she received this degree, I believe, in 1979 from MIT. That was quite a success story because Dr. Patrick actually is a native Alabamian, as I am, and she started off at Tuskegee like I did. So she did not remain at Tuskegee, but I believe she went to the UCLA Berkeley, I believe, and got her bachelor's degree there in chemical engineering. And then from there, she went to MIT and graduated. So she is likely, I believe she is considered the first Black woman to get a PhD in chemical engineering and likely one of the first women. But I would also like to emphasize that there were some women who were doing some type of engineering early on. And you might be familiar with the movie adaptation of Hidden Figures and Black women who were also doing engineering at that time. So, yeah, but that was in the 60s. So that preceded Jennie a little bit. But, you know, she was one of the very first. And she happens to be a great friend of mine. She is a very strong advocate for young Black women as well as for women and minorities in underrepresented groups in the sciences. She has a wonderful story, and I hope you will read it.
Dr. Jordan, Kids for Chemistry has a game that teaches you chemistry. Don't waste the brain. We want you to meet Awa, Gerald, Justin, and Maki. They're going to teach you or explain to you how to play the game.
Great! I have heard a lot about Awa, Gerald, Justin, and Maki. I can't wait to meet them and learn to play this wonderful, innovative game of chemistry. But I have to warn you, I'm a little scared. But let's go. Let's give it a try.
Okay, Dr. Jordan. We are going to show you how to play Kids for Chemistry the game. We are just going to show you the basics for playing to get you started.
Justin and I are going to be on the same team, and Maki and Awa are going to be on the same team.
It's the boys against the girls.
This is the main board for the game. We all begin at the start block and collect $500.
Then we roll the dice and move that number to the spot on the board.
We rolled a 6, so we moved to spot E. Now we have to identify the atom in that spot.
You click on the atom to bring it to the center of the board. This atom has 2 s orbitals, and the outermost orbitals are p orbitals with 5 electrons.
Look on the sidebar on the periodic table. Since there are 2 s orbitals, the atom is in the second row.
And now, look at the bottom bar. Since there are 5 electrons in the outermost p orbital, the atom is in the 7th column.
Therefore, the atom must be fluorine. And we are correct! Yay!
And now we get to pick a card and answer the question for money. What are the 3 particles that atoms are made of?
I know. Protons, neutrons, and electrons.
That's right, Maki. And we win $500. And we are in the lead now. All right.
But it's our turn now. We roll the dice, and it's a 10. So we move to spot I. And now we have to identify the atom on that spot.
You click on this atom to bring it to the center of the board. This atom has 3 s orbitals, and the outermost orbital is an s orbital with 2 electrons.
Look at the sidebar in the periodic table. Since there are 3 s orbitals in the atom, it is in the 3rd row.
And now look at the bottom bar. Since there are 2 electrons in the outermost s orbital, the atom is in the 2nd column.
Therefore, the atom must be magnesium. And we're correct! Yay!
And now we get to pick a card and answer the question for money. What is an ion? I know that an ion is an atom with a positive or negative charge.
That's correct, Justin. And we win $500. And now the score is tied.
So, Dr. Jordan, We just showed you the basics for playing the game.
There is more to learn, but we will teach you more another time.
Justin, you knew the answer. You're so smart.
Ooh, I think Maki has a crush on Justin. What do you think?
Oh boy, Dr. Jordan. Not you too.
Okay, Dr. Jordan. This is the part of the show where you play the game, Identify the Atoms. So, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Okay, let me see if I can explain this. Been a long time since I had chemistry. Okay, the two s orbitals have two, right? So it must be in the what? Yes. Started with lithium going across in the second row, I think, right? Then the p orbitals, they have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let me see where that is. Okay, that looks like it's over there. I think that row, if I go up, I see oxygen and sulfur. Okay. Oh, it's oxygen. It's oxygen. I got it right. Are you serious? It's been a long time, but this is fun. Much fun.
Dr. Jordan, it was a pleasure having you on our show. Thank you for sharing your book, Sisters in Science.
Dr. Jordan, Awa and me and Joy are sisters in science. Are you going to write a book about us?
Well, I promise that if I write another book, then you're going to be in it. But I'm sure when you grow up, you'll be writing your own book. As a matter of fact, you can do that right now. Now, before I go, it was such a pleasure meeting all of you. And guess what? I am going to send each one of you a personal autographed copy of my book. And I want you to start writing. Writing is such a great part of science. What you're doing with Mr. Baldock is so wonderful. So wonderful. I truly enjoyed your show. I appreciate your having me. I am not your typical scientist, and you are not either. You are unique, beautiful young people. And I am so grateful to have had this opportunity to meet each one of you. It's been my pleasure and honor. Thank you.